So I had attended a call earlier today on how would I describe it? About living a purposeful life, but also finding one's soul purpose. I guess would be the way I would describe it. The guy said, are you doing survival dance or soul dance, sacred dance? Which is a pretty good description of the extremes of living our lives, because more often than not it feels like survival, um, and very little purpose, very little soul driven experiences in our lives. And he was talking about this experience of how do you discover, because everything about us will try to figure out and give an answer to what a soul purpose is in your life. And in my experience, it just doesn't happen that way. It will often come in the form of a metaphor or a story or an image or something like that, which is why it becomes challenging for people to know what to do with that, because we typically, overarchingly as a culture, as a society, don't live that way. We live very much driven by what we see rather than by this deeper story, this deeper metaphor and soul purpose of what it is we're often looking for. But he had made the point, when we're young, when we're teenagers and we're thinking about what's next, what are we going to do for work? What do you want to do when you grow up? It is a very common question for us, which is a legitimate question. Obviously, there's some practicality and pragmatics to our direction in life. We have to be able to quote unquote survive in some ways by paychecks and stuff like that. But we have a tendency to just kind of push aside the fact that maybe there's something deeper in us, maybe there's a larger purpose for us in our lives, or something driving us. And so we don't necessarily have the language or the tools to discover what this is, because it in many times requires us to step away from the logical side of our lives and look into this imaginative space of this deeper story of who we are. I've been mindful of it the past couple of weeks. I have written on my board right across from where I'm recording here, the words "just be human," because I think in some ways that is part of my own deeper story, and this purpose in life, of almost being like a midwife to someone's soul. But just prior to me leaving ministry, I was meeting with my therapist at the time, and somehow we got on the topic of being human, which it seems obvious, and I know that even saying it seems obvious. We are all human, but we don't act from a place of our humanity all the time. And I remember having this conversation with him as I was nearing the end, and I'm trying to like hold everything together in my life, and my life feels like it's falling apart at the same time. And talking about the humanity of that struggle. And he had said to me at that point, I think part of the gift that you bring for people is your own humanity. And I'm like, that's it? Like that it just seems boring. It seems, well, where's the fun in that? And the longer I've gone on in life, I think there's a lot of truth to it. He said that one of your strongest gifts is your humanity and understanding that humanity, and then in turn helping others bring it out of themselves, which I've tried to kind of midwife of the soul. And another woman I've worked with here in Sedona talked about pulling the very thin thread of a person's life to unravel what's not important in order to discover what is important. That those two things are always happen simultaneously, because our ego and our heads have such a strong hold on us. it's sometimes hard to unravel that thread. It's not, in my position, it's not hard to see it, but to unravel it is a whole other story, because it seems like it just finds another way to hold on even tighter when it begins to feel like it's falling apart. As I described myself, I felt like I was trying to hold together everything about my own life, when in reality it was falling apart. And who the heck wants to admit that their life needs to fall apart? And I found myself in that situation at other times in my life as well, where it feels like it's falling apart, and what do I do? And why not let it fall apart? I think what's been important for me is, one, allowing it to fall apart after a lot of fighting with myself, but the value of having someone with you who can help hold all the pieces, because ultimately not all the pieces are going to come back into the puzzle, but someone that can hold all the pieces gently in their hands, so that you decide what it is that comes back. What are the pieces that come back? And how important that person is, and how difficult it is. And I know this from my own experience, how difficult it is to find someone who can do that, who has the ability to help pull that thread so that what isn't important falls apart in order to discover what is important, and still can hold all the pieces. Because in that moment, it feels like all those pieces are so important. All those pieces have tremendous value, and they did have value, because all those pieces have gotten you to where you are today. They're just not going to get you to the next level. They're just not going to get you where you want to go in life. If you want to live from this deeper place of value, from this deeper place of soul, and doing the soul dance of your life. And it it's probably one of the single biggest problems that we face in our world, because we don't have the people who can help others do that, to know the language, to understand the story, to understand the value of unraveling all of that in order to discover something deeper about yourself. And someone in the coaching arena, there are many coaches. I think there are many therapists that help us cope with what we deal with in life. That this is what it is. I don't have a lot of control over it, and I got to make it work. And so help me make it work. But in order to live from that deeper place, that from that soul dance, as he described it, um, I'll just read what he said. How do you know when you get there? It's the place where your deepest gladness, your deepest joy, and the world's deepest hunger meet. I don't know what that deepest hunger is, um, other than connection, which again seems really simple, as I say, well, just be human. That what we want is connection, that we want to have that experience of being one with someone else, one with ourselves, seems so simple, and yet can seem so daunting when we don't know the language or the roadmap to go there. So I just wanted to share those thoughts from this call earlier today, about what he described as refusing the call. And I don't even think I think refusing is a strong word. I just don't think most are aware that there is this deeper call, that something is being summoned out of us in that moment. And what are we doing to listen to it, to understand it without logic, and ultimately to live into it, and to be human.